Now more than ever, transportation business owners need industry experts at every stage in their company's life cycle. We bring them to you in the hot seat.
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Got a special guest today in the hot seat. That's going to be Edis Hobson. Edis, good to be with you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, so just quick 15, 20 seconds. Tell us who you are and where you're coming from.
Sure. So Edis Hobson, EH Transport out of Houston, Texas. We were a chemical hazmat transportation company. We did a lot of specialized chemical products, bulk tanker for the most part.
Perfect. You ready for the hot seat?
I'm ready.
Let's get to it.
Let's go.
So a special edition here. We got a former client, someone who's gone through transitioning ownership of their business to another party. So excited to kind of dig in there. So let's just start right at the top. What were the factors that led to you deciding that it was time to make a change and transition your business?
Sure. We started growing to a capacity to where it was going to take another huge financial injection to take the company to another level. And we started looking at government regulations. We started looking at insurance premiums. We started looking at, what it was going to take to make that next step. And we just said, from a financial standpoint, was it worth that risk, considering what we've been through and riding some waves throughout the transportation industry? And so we just, we said, you know what, it might be best to continue to keep the company alive, keep our staff, keep our drivers, and merge with another company, someone bigger that can absorb us and handle all that it takes to run a good company.
Excellent. So once you were in the process,
Yes.
What were some of the things that were, it's a big decision.
Correct.
So what were some of the things that were really important to you as you established some goals? If I'm going to transition my business, I want to make sure that these things happen.
My team, to some degree, is being taken care of. The good thing is all your drivers are pretty well secured. And then myself, are we merging with a good team? Obviously, I'm going to have to work with those people after the fact. And then, let's be realistic too. You want to walk away with a good
Gotta get paid.
Pay, right? So, let's not act like that's not the elephant in the room as well. But other than that, those are the key factors, I believe.
Saying kind of along the same lines, for those that are trying to figure out what is the right time for me to sell, what could you pass along to other people who are trying to make that decision on? I mean, when is the right time to sell?
The trucking industry, it can be a cyclical industry, depending on what you're hauling and what you're carrying. And so they may want to pad themselves against that exposure. They might, for me, I'm a small private company. One owner, even if it's a small partnership or whatever, maybe they don't want to put their family through that potential risk of making that full injection and then they can't carry it out. What happens if the industry turn, which in my favor, the industry turned this year. And, good thing we sold in early part of the year. And now to see how the industry has turned so badly, it would have affected what we injected, and it would have hurt us making those steps forward, and maybe we would have had to take some step back even after we've made this commitment. So, you got to weigh that. Do you want to take that risk? Because when you put a lot of capital out, you can potentially lose.
And lose big.
And then now, you got to give it away. And so we didn't want to take that risk.
No. Obviously it's a very it's a very rewarding industry, but it's also a very unforgiving industry. So with every deal, and I know you can appreciate this, I mean, it's a little bit of a roller coaster sometimes. There's some swings. Right. So how did you deal with some of the emotional swings as part of the process?
Very tough. Obviously, you're highly connected. We were in the industry for 12 years. Sometimes you got your family involved, there's other people involved. And so you have to always understand that it's business. You're selling your company, it's a business. The purchaser that's coming in, they're looking at it from a business standpoint. They don't, not to say they don't care, but They're not looking at your family and everything that you've done and what it took for you to get there. They're looking at where are we going to be able to take this company next, and et cetera. So for me, it was just, I would express all my emotions with my team, with you guys,
Thankfully, yes.
But I would always make sure I remain professional with the purchaser.
Right.
They would never see that side. They would never see me get upset or get out of character, because that wouldn't be good for the success of that acquisition.
All right, Edis, another question. So, one of the things that I think that you can appreciate when we got into the due diligence side of the transaction, pretty intense.
Oh, most definitely.
So, but you did very well. So what can you share with our audience about how best to navigate through that, to make that work well for you? What do you have to do when you're working with a buyer and advisor trying to get through due diligence?
Keeping up with everything, learning what's needed early. That way, when you start to hear what's required, you can start preparing for that, and having, we had different files for everything so that we can make sure things were organized and in order, whether it was getting with the accountants, whether it was getting with the legal team, whether it was making sure that we had our paperwork, our financials, and whatever it was that was necessary in line. I think was key.
So one of the challenges of deal making, we have valuation gaps, both in terms of what a seller, may be here and a buyer may be here.
Right.
So maybe you could just share a little bit about what you learned in that experience. We go to the market, we have some goals, and then the market ultimately tells us where we're at. So what could you share with our listeners just about how to prepare their minds and expectations once they get into that process?
Tough feeling, tough reality sometimes. We are in a different industry. We have to not think tech world and look at CNBC and think, our company's going to sell for a 10 times, 15 time multiple. We have to understand the industry that we're in first, and it's transportation. And so it's different.
The environment right now, a lot of M&A activity across trucking.
Yeah.
And so many regional, national, strategic players aggressively going to targets like you and trying to get a deal done directly. What advice would you give to the folks who have already connected with a prospective buyer who don't desire or don't see the need to have third-party representation advising them through the transaction process?
Sure. I definitely would not like to go into any situation, especially when you're dealing with a huge acquirer, blindly. You want someone that can, in a sense, hold your hand, kind of guide you through it, somebody that's been there through it and have conquered those paths before. And I think you can lose out very dearly without someone coaching you and being able to point out things contractually wise, or that's the biggest key to it, as to hey, these are some things you need to look out for, because again, and I say the same thing, and there are some things that you guys brought to the table. Huge things that I would not even thought about, and I come from an accounting background, so you're going up against experienced, well-trained, well-together companies. These guys, they have years of experience of doing this, and then here you go, this is maybe your first rodeo, and I just truly do not think that would be the best way to proceed. That's why, for me, it was big for me to get with the Tenney Group, because of the experience that you guys offered.
We appreciate that. I got one last question for you.
Hammer away.
It's a wild card.
All right.
So, I just learned that you are an LSU fan.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, all-time favorite LSU football player is who?
Oh, man. So, I'm an LSU grad. I was there in the deep of it, in the thick of it. You know what? I love Tyrone Matthews. He just...
Is that
the honey badger?
Honey badger?
Yeah. There was a lot of good guys.
He was unbelievable.
But man, the dude just knew how to be around the ball.
He's a ball
he knew
hawk.
how to
Yes, he
find
was.
the ball. He knew how to get it out the opponent's hands, and I loved him, you know, and I watched his career as he went from, you know, when he was drafted, and he even came to Texas. He played with the Texans for a little bit, and so, you know, I enjoyed.
I love it. Well, Edis, we thank you for being in the hot seat. We especially thank you for being our client. We don't take it lightly.
Great.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Spencer Tenney, that's going to wrap for the hot seat today. We'll see you next time.